Are you looking for an internet talk radio station for your podcast? Look no further. At the helm of Passionate World Talk Radio are two women that want to provide a spot for you and your podcast to be heard. There are many other places for your podcast, but PWTR has the audience. You will not be disappointed. Our station has been on the internet for the past 16 years. Call us for more information. 484-364-1032 or text Jeannie White, station manager at PHECONNECTSHOW@gmail.com for podcast show details. Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain.
Well, hello and welcome. My name is Sheila Wilson, and I am a registered nurse. I am also president of Stop Healthcare Violence. I am a host on Passionate World Talk Radio, and our CEO is Lillian Caldwell, and station manager is Jeannie White. Tonight is the Whine and Cheese program that I do. This episode I am doing tonight is with Miss Judie Vankooiman. She has a cable TV show called Life Issues, and she has been doing that for quite some time. I met Judie when I talked on her cable show, and that was a while back. And just recently I met up with her again when I was at her resource fair in Lynn, Mass. So hello, Judie, and welcome to the Whine and Cheese program. Thank you for being on my show.
Well, thank you, Sheila, for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be on, and hi to all your audience and everything. So, like Sheila mentioned, I have a cable show called Life Issues, and so I started that in 2010, and because I lost my husband to cancer, and I was a widow and couldn't find any good resources, etc. And prior to him passing, I lost my full-time job at a major law firm in Boston. So I was kind of, in a pickle, as they say. And so I said, you know what, there must be other people out there in the world that is looking for resources or might be going through their bumps in their lives, etc. So I started that, and I've been doing it for over 10 years, and I have 13 cable stations that air it for me, which I greatly appreciate of. And I learn something new every time on the show that I do. My November show will be about Alzheimer's, which my mom just recently passed, and she had Alzheimer's before, when she passed away, and I know a few other people in my life that have Alzheimer's. So it's always some kind of connection sometimes, the topics, and it's on also on YouTube if people want to research that. And so I do that, and then but a few years after that, I piggybacked off of it and started a nonprofit in memory of my husband called Those Who Can for Those in Need. And I, like Sheila mentioned, she was recently at our resource fair in Lynn. We had our first one back after COVID, and we usually had held it in Winthrop, but we spread our wings and moved it a little bit north. And we had a great turnout for being, something new venue, etc. People loved it. It was held at the new YMCA in Lynn, and there was family activities and just all kinds of fun stuff. And
I was at that resource fair, as you well know, Judy, and I thought that was fantastic. There was more resources there in one place than anybody could have found anywhere. You really put that resource fair together beautifully.
Well, thank you, Sheila. It was kind of interesting that how we were going to do it, especially after COVID, but I had so many people asking me to when are we going to do the resource fair again? When are we going to do the resource fair? So I knew people needed it and wanted to have it done. So we did it. So and we're shooting for it again next year in September. It's always, like I said, it's in memory of my husband, and his passing was towards the beginning of September, so that's why I have it right after Labor Day weekend, and so people enjoy it. School started, and it's something for the kids to do and everything. So I want to kind of backtrack too, Sheila. And like I said, I mentioned that this was in memory of my husband, and after he passed, and I had lost my full-time job. We had owned a two-family house, and there was a couple mortgages on the house yet, and so I ended up selling it, and the new owners wanted me to rent back to them and live there, but I hadn't really found a job, so to speak. I had tiny little part-time things going on, but nothing that was going to pay the rent, etc. So I held on as long as I could, but I ended up being evicted, and that put me into a shelter. I was homeless, and for about 9 months, and I eventually found apartment, and the shelter was in Lynn, and that was a life-changing experience. So when I tell people that, and I after I got out of there and got into housing, I moved back to Winthrop, because Winthrop's always been my home, so I didn't want to move anyplace else. But
Right.
So that's about it.
Well, tell me, Judy, when you found out that you had lost your job and you had the two-family with the mortgage, and you said you got evicted. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, you did.
You did. And then you went to a shelter. Now, that must have been terrifying for you.
Yeah, because I had never gone through that experience. I had put most of my stuff in storage. I did have my own car, so I put a lot of stuff in my car. But as soon as you get into the shelter in the mid-afternoon, excuse me, they go through your belongings. You can't keep any candy or gum or any food on you. If you have any meds, they take the meds from you, and they'll distribute them out to, as needed. When you first get the shelter is full to the max. Basically, it's for both adult female and males. And when I first got there, I had to, they gave me a mat to sleep on the floor, and then after there was enough, after people left, like a revolving door, basically. So people would leave, and when there was an open bed, then people that had been sleeping on the floor got a bed, and etc. They have showers, and not shared, but for females and males. And I would always ask for early morning wake up. Since I got my own car, I could get out of the shelter first thing, get a shower, and just get out, because I didn't want to be around, because there were fights going on, and there was really interesting things going on. I'm going, okay, I just kind of kept to myself. I would do word search books and stuff. So it was interesting.
Judy, did they give you breakfast?
They did serve some, but I would maybe go to McDonald's to get breakfast, and I had a laptop, so I do some work and research and all that. So.
Now, how long did you have to stay? I think I heard you say 9 months at the shelter.
Exactly.
And did you get accustomed to it, or, I mean, just knowing you for the very short time, I would imagine that you talked to the people in charge and you got to know what, from A to Z, what was going on in the shelter.
Right.
So
yeah.
Did you feel comfortable?
Well, not really, because I never knew what was going to be expected during the middle of the night, because the shelter is required to give copies of driver's license or IDs to the police station, and because anybody can show up at the shelter. And so there were times that during the middle of the night that police would come into the woman's dorm and take somebody out, and I'm going, okay, what was that about? So
Scary.
yeah, so like I said, it was interesting. I would not wish it upon my worst enemy, that's for sure. And it just, I don't want to really say it grew on me, but I just kind of did my thing. I kind of stayed out of everybody's way. There was a common room, and it had a big TV, and so the people would come in and watch movies and stuff, but the volume of the TV went up every time people were talking loud and everything. So I just kind of did my own thing, just mind my own business. So
after 9 months, how did you get out of the shelter?
Well, luckily I had a very dear friend who was the executive director of the senior center in Winthrop, and she knew the woman in charge of the housing authority, and I was considered an emergency base. They got me right in, well, not right in, but I couldn't get into an apartment right away because there weren't any available, but as soon as there was, then I could get into an apartment in housing, and so I was so grateful for that, and it was so nice to have a little apartment, to myself, that didn't have to worry about people screaming or loud TVs or anything like that. So it was pretty cool, and having my own stuff back too. That was
that was awesome. So now you're in your own place. Now, can you share with us what you did? How'd you get involved with cable?
Well,
did you get a job? Do all that type stuff, and just saw a cable show?
Yeah, I knew somebody, a volunteer, because they're all volunteers at the cable station. It was just the executive director and the assistant director that are paid for working there. So I talked to somebody that said that she could help me get started and to have my own show, and so I went with it. I just jumped at the chance to help people and everything. So, and then in the meantime, I got a job working with home health care with the elderly. I really enjoyed that, and then did that for a few years. And then I had always worked with special need kids since high school, and I got my 7D license to drive a minivan, and I transport special need kids to and from school now. So I've been doing that for 4 or 5 years.
Well, that is awesome. Now, how often do you do your cable TV show?
I tape it once a month, and towards the end of that month, and then it'll air the following month. Like the one I just mentioned about Alzheimer's, I taped that in October, so it'll air through the whole month of November.
Well, that's I know we did the show for you. It was me and Liz McTomney, the nurse that was really assaulted with the woman that jumped on her back and had to have 7 people to get that patient off of her back. And she was out of work for a long time. And So these are all sorts of life issues that you must listen to. Is that,
Right.
I mean, this is, the violence that happens to the healthcare workers in the hospitals. And so can you share a couple of the life issues that you've been able to help somebody with?
I've done shows on all types of topics that people have commented afterwards, oh, that was a great show, I learned so much, or my aunt was looking for information about that topic. But I've done, I tell people I do shows, anything to do with life. That's why it's called Life Issues. But I've done shows on homelessness, of course, and the elderly, substance abuse, just after-school programs. There's a wonderful one here in Winthrop that they have 5 different base sites and called for kids only after school. So, like I said, it's all types of topics.
And do you ever get to meet them afterwards? Like, I mean, I only met you at when we went on the cable TV, and then I end up meeting you at the resource fair again.
Yeah.
That for me, Judy, that was very exciting to see you in action at that resource fair. You never stopped moving.
No, I was on the go. I had to. Yeah.
Right. And
I sure got my exercise that day.
Oh, you got your steps in. That was for sure. That was an awful lot. But there wasn't just a group of people at that resource fair, handing out things. I mean, there was so many, what do you call them, little goodies that people were passing out. But you had that fellow, or maybe it was a female, I can't remember, with the snakes. Do you remember who that was? And that was a huge snake that was in that resource fair. And then right here where we were sitting was the pool. And all the little kids would come in with their families and their bathing suits, and they'd be jumping into the pool. And then when we went to talk to everybody that was at this resource fair, because we wanted to learn too. I mean, there was an awful lot of people there. And then there was, this was at the YMCA, correct? And there was a group going on of children in a room that was doing all sorts of computer work. And it was like, what? And then there was snacks for the people and pizzas. I think next year there's going to be a huge amount. You might have to say, oh, no, you can't come this year.
Hopefully not. Every year we've grown resource-wise. We've the year before COVID shut things down, we had a little over 30 organizations join us, and then this year there was around between 20 and 25. So, like I said, it dropped. I think people were still not quite sure about getting out into the public and all that, so didn't want to push anybody, and whoever could make it made it, and whoever couldn't, did. So didn't. So it was great.
You had quite a variety. It wasn't one group of people. It was, you had the sheriff department, you had people from DSS, you had the people from the blind. You had all that, but let's go back to those life issues. What gave you the courage once you had to move out of your home to do something else? I mean, you could have ended up being very, very depressed. You lost your husband, lost your job, and then had to get out of the home that you were in for, had to be a few years anyhow.
Yeah, I just, I knew that if I didn't continue on, if I sat around doing nothing, I would have my husband would have been kicking my you-know-what. And so I said, you know what, it's not worth, sitting around. I know everyone mourns in their own way. It just all depends on their situation and everything, but I just couldn't, sit around. I had to get out there, and my friend that is, like I mentioned, her from the senior center, she started me in volunteering, and I joined various boards, and I just kept busy and between work and the cable show and everything else. So,
do you think that took a little courage
to do the cable show?
To do what you just did, going and volunteering, and you just don't shut the door on your life.
Right.
I heard you say that you grieve, and sometimes people grieve for a very long time. There's no end to grieving, and but that took so much out of you. Well, I'm just saying that. I don't know, because I didn't know you at that time. That
Right.
To be able to, kind of put your big girl pants on and decide you're going to go out and volunteer, and then go on to a cable show and actually have one about life issues. That to me is absolutely fascinating, because people can go in and talk about anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you said, right? They spoke about addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And do you give resources if somebody talks to you about addiction or Alzheimer's or any of that?
Well,
do you
actually,
referrals?
I on our website we have a category that says resources, and so people that have participated in the resource fair. This year's hasn't been posted yet, so don't go looking for them yet. But I will get the organizations posted as soon as I can, and so people will be able to go up there. So if I get a call or email from somebody, I tell them I can't tell you what to do. I can only suggest. So I'll say, okay, go, call these organizations, or call, or visit them, or whatever the matter might be, and they can take it into their own hands and take the next step. So I always wish them the best, and to whatever they have to encounter in their life.
And that's kind of tough. You must hear it in the voice when they're truly desperate and not knowing what to do, just to be able to give somebody an idea of where to go and what to do.
Yeah. Right.
You save people's lives doing that, and that's to me is a very important outlook. And it may not happen in a week, but it could happen in a month or 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I can't imagine what it was like to be homeless. Did you ever sleep in your car?
No, I never thought about that, because there wasn't really any room, because I had some, my clothes and.
What would you like to say to our audience about maybe the life issues in itself? I mean, you survived. That wasn't easy for you to survive. Is there any good hints?
Well, don't hesitate to ask. There's always somebody, or somebody can refer you to somebody that knows what the next step could be. So just hang in there and just, keep on. As I say at the end of my show, there's a reason for everything. Well, that's one of my mottos, but live each day to the fullest, because you never know, the next day, what the next day will bring to you in your life. But just remember that and celebrate life. Just keep on.
That's really good encouragement, because what you said is absolutely true. We never know what it's going to bring, and you could be in the best day in the world, and all you have to do is blink your eye, and it changes in a minute. And it can be the opposite. You could be in the worst state of mind and think nothing is going to happen any good, and you might as well just, forget about succeeding. And all of a sudden, somebody can come up to you and say something, and your whole life changes.
Yeah, that's for sure.
When you were in the shelter, then you said that you met somebody, or you knew the woman or the person, and you were able to get help.
Yeah,
the senior center. That was, that had to be one of the happiest days of your life.
Oh yes.
And that was like, you could turn your whole life around. Now you're going to be in your own place. You didn't have to worry about your clothes. You didn't have to worry about fights. Maybe, you could get some food in your own place that you could make.
Right.
That certainly was a step up, wasn't it? And so, how old or I don't know if you will tell me, but about how old were you when your husband died and all this trouble started?
I was just a few months after I turned 50. So
you were still young enough and vibrant enough, but that was terrible to have your husband die like that. And how long did he have his cancer?
It very short time, within a month's time. He was diagnosed in the beginning of August, I believe, and like I mentioned, shortly at the beginning of September, he passed away.
And do you know what type of cancer he had?
It was esophageal.
It was what?
Esophageal. It's in the throat area, but it wasn't throat cancer. It was I can't spell it out, but
Oh no, that's all right.
Yeah, he was an ex-smoker, so that was one reason that he died from that. But it wasn't it wasn't lung cancer though, but there was that was the specific cancer that he died of.
Oh my word, that is so sad. It had to be very difficult for you to be watching them. Like when we see our own people die, it's very sad.
Yeah, well, but I am glad that I got to spend that last month with him. So I always say that there's a reason for everything. It's because the attorneys I was working for, they would never let me take all that time off to be with him at the end. So that was probably disguised that I was fired from my job because of that. So
that's right. You've made several points tonight in this conversation about your life and how it can change, and you never know what's going to happen. Just like getting fired, and with that, you were able to stay with your husband for that time, and that had to be a blessing, actually. And Judy, our time is coming to an end. And is there anything else you would like to say?
I think I pretty well said it, Sheila. I hope no one has to go through what I did, but if they do, like I said, just keep on, and just keep on asking, for help.
That's awesome. That's great advice. So I will say we will meet again, and I would like to thank our listeners for listening. And again, thank Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passionate World Talk Radio, and Jeannie White, our station manager, and I'll say good night. Again, my name is Sheila Wilson. I'm president of Stop Healthcare Violence and a host on Passionate World Talk Radio. Thank you very much, Judy. And I'll say good night.
Thank you, Sheila. Good night.
Are you looking for an internet talk radio station for your podcast? Look no further. At the helm of Passionate World Talk Radio are two women that want to provide a spot for you and your podcast to be heard. There are many other places for your podcast, but PWTR has the audience. You will not be disappointed. Our station has been on the internet for the past 16 years. Call us for more information. 484-364-1032 or text Jeannie White, station manager at PHECONNECTSHOW@gmail.com for podcast show details. Thank you for listening to Passionate World Talk Radio. You can listen to this program all over again by going over to https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. You can also hear it on Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Alexa, AMFM247.com every Tuesday evening between 8 and 9 p.m. YouTube, Facebook, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, and all the other podcast directories one can find on the internet.